More than 50 million cases of coronavirus infections have been reported across the globe. A second wave of the virus in the past 30 days accounts for a quarter of the total. It's been almost a year since health officials cited Wuhan's Huanan seafood wholesale market as ground zero for the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers stated in January that the new virus probably mutated from a coronavirus common in animals such as bats and pangolins and jumped over to humans in the Wuhan market. But the global debate over how the pandemic began still continues. The World Health Organization is hunting for the coronavirus's origins. Disease detectives have reached the final stages of the hunt. With the world still coming to grips with COVID-19, startlingly, another new mutated strain of coronavirus has started to emerge. But this time, it's not from China. The mutated virus, which appears to have spread from animals to humans in Denmark, has been detected at a mink farm.
So yes, I'm sure you've seen the reports of the circulation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in minks. We've been seeing this for a number of months now. And what we understand is the minks have been infected with contact from humans. It circulates in the mink, and then it can pass back to humans. And so there's always a concern when you have circulation and transmission from human to animals and then animals to humans.
6 countries have reported coronavirus outbreaks at mink farms. These are the Netherlands, Denmark, Spain, Sweden, Italy, and the US. Mutations in coronavirus have triggered killing of millions of farmed mink in Denmark. Government authorities say because the animals are good hosts of the novel coronavirus, and this new viral variant could undermine vaccine efforts against COVID-19, they are destroying the nation's entire stock of mink.
The Danish government has, for the moment, the global pandemic reached Denmark, chosen to act fast, decisively, and with clear commitment that we would rather go a step too far than take a step too little to combat COVID-19. This is also the reason why we have chosen to take extensive and comprehensive measures in the current situation. Culling of 17 million mink, effectively shutting down the entire industry for now in Denmark. Extensive local restrictions in the affected areas, large-scale testing of the population in the affected areas. This is not a decision that has been taken lightly, but it is a necessary precaution.
A part of the country has been put under lockdown. Zoonotic diseases, which jump from animals to humans, are increasing and will continue to do so without action. Dutch mink farms started a government-ordered cull. The cull involves farm workers in protective clothing using gas on mink mothers and pups. Gassing animals is a standard industry practice in cases of disease outbreaks. It is considered the safest option because the skin of the animals remain unbroken, avoiding the release of contaminated bodily fluids into the environment. The bodies are sent to a disposal plant and the farms are disinfected.
The Danish health authorities have observed a very serious development in the coronavirus in infected mink. Infections have been found on 207 mink farms today, and this development has taken place despite intensive efforts to limit the spread of the infection. At the same time, infection with new mutated types of the coronavirus has been observed in both Danish mink cull and the local human population. Thus, it has also not succeeded in limiting further infection to the surrounding community. In other words, the virus mutates in mink, and the mutated virus has spread to humans.
But the country's plans to cull all 17 million mink has hit legal obstacles. The government admitted it did not have a legal basis for the order. The ferret-like animals are bred for their fur in about 1,100 mink farms in Denmark. Critics and opposition parties of the country say the cull of healthy mink should not have been initiated before plans were in place to compensate the owners and workers.
Oh, it's been... I don't know what I should say. It's been hard that we not have for us animals. This is every day we got out to check us animals how is do and this health and all this thing. This is the work we do every day. So it's been not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun.
It's almost been an evil nightmare. It has been for a while now, but now it's over, so that's just how it is.
Everything is going very well. We have reached a high level. We are currently culling 100,000 minks a day. But we need to go higher, and we are speeding up now.
Sadly, not many are talking about animal cruelty. Fur farming is an inhumane industry. Animals are typically kept in small wire cages, often with thousands of them stacked together. The methods used on fur farms are focused on maximizing profits at the expense of animals. Typically, mink are slaughtered in December for their fur. The small mammals are euthanized. Other techniques used to kill them are neck breaking, electrocution, using carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, argon, and lethal injection. Let's look at these little creatures to see what makes them so valuable for humans. Minks are small, soft mammals with short legs, long bodies, pointed snouts, and claws. They are related to ermites, ferrets, and weasels. In the wild, minks are found near bodies of water that also have some tree cover. They make their homes by digging dens or by living in hollow logs. A far cry from how they are kept captive in mink farms. There are two species of minks: American mink and European mink. The American mink is larger and more adaptable than the European mink. All European mink have a large white patch on their upper lip, whereas only some American mink have this marking. Denmark is the world's biggest producer of mink fur, followed by Poland and China. It is estimated that more than 50 million mink a year are bred for their fur. The European Union accounts for 63% of global mink production. Denmark's share is 28%. In 2000, the United Kingdom announced a ban on fur farming in Britain, but didn't prevent the import and sale of fur animals farmed overseas.
We are concerned about this outbreak, but I'm concerned about the fact that this virus has become virulent across the mink population, And I think that there is an international case on public health grounds for addressing this question of mink farming, which we banned in the UK 2 decades ago.
Fur is one of the oldest forms of clothing. In the last 2 centuries, these garments emerged as a coveted fashion item, a symbol of status and luxury. The varieties of fur are many, and each has its own attributes. Mink, sable, and chinchilla are the most expensive. Rabbit and hare fur are the least expensive. Fur prices vary depending on where you buy the garment. A real mink fur coat can retail for anything from $1,000 to $150,000. Animal welfare activists have been demanding a ban on animal cruelty for fur trade, but not to much avail. In 2016, nearly 2/3 of women's 2016 fall fashion collections featured fur. There are many other uses of mink too. Mink oil is used in some medical products and cosmetics, as well as to treat, preserve, and waterproof leather. But all this comes at a cost. More than 2,000 people have been infected with mink-related coronavirus since June. The musteline animal kept in large numbers on mink farms has caught the virus from infected workers. It's not the first time an animal has been infected with COVID-19 by a human. Several animals, including dogs, cats, and even tigers, have tested positive for the virus. The only difference this time is that the virus has spilled back from mink to humans, picking up genetic changes on the way.
A virus or a bacterium is
The new strain of COVID-19, called the cluster 5 variant, led to mutation in the virus pod's spike protein, which most vaccines target. It's interesting to note that mink and humans have a similar biological trait regarding a so-called AC2 enzyme expressed by cells of the respiratory tract, which makes it easier for mink to be infected with a virus that has adapted to humans. Mink are the only animal known to both catch the virus from people and transmit it to them. Scientists also fear that the virus could also jump from mink to other animals. This is worrisome, particularly in the midst of a resurgence of the virus in the human population.
Mammal species like mink are very good hosts in a sense, and the virus can evolve within those species, especially if they're large numbers packed closely together. So in that sense, we have to look at that viral evolution. We have to create the biosecurity around farms like that so that there's not that contact back with human populations.
According to Denmark's State Serum Institute, Denmark has identified 5 variants of the virus stemming from mink, but only one, known as cluster 5, showed reduced sensitivity towards antibodies.
This is very, very serious, as the Danish health authorities in their laboratory have found 5 examples of viruses in mink farms and 12 examples of viruses in humans that showed reduced sensitivity to antibodies. The mutated virus in mink may therefore pose the risk that the upcoming vaccines will not work as they should.
So, is the mutated virus more dangerous? Well, so far there is no evidence that any of the mutations that stemmed out of mink can speed COVID-19 infections in humans or make them sicker.
The evidence that we have doesn't suggest that this variant is in any way different in the way it behaves. It may have a slightly different signature, but it is still the same virus. What we have to evaluate over time is whether that virus has any difference in transmission or clinical severity, or whether there is any implication for diagnostics of vaccines. But we're a long way from making any determination of that kind.
Mink appear to be susceptible to the new virus and good reservoirs for the virus. As mink are kept in cages in close proximity to each other in mink farms, the virus can spread rapidly. Mutations in viruses happen all the time. Viruses survive by adapting to new environments. Most mutations of the coronavirus are harmless. To date, there is no evidence that any of the mutations pose an increased danger to people. The Danish authorities are not taking any chances. Even the trucks that carried minks for mass burials were thoroughly disinfected. 2 days after the government ordered the cull, more than 250,000 Danes went into lockdown in a northern region of the country. Sport and cultural activities have been suspended. Public transportation has been stopped and regional borders have been closed in 7 northern Danish municipalities. Let's see how the other countries are reacting. Denmark has been removed from the United Kingdom's quarantine-free travel corridor list. This means all flyers, including cabin crew arriving from the Nordic country, have to self-isolate on arrival for a 14-day period. Travelers currently in Denmark are allowed to finish their trips and are advised to follow the local rules. The restrictions will last until December 3rd. Scottish airline Logan Air also suspended flights between Scotland and Denmark from November 9th to November 22nd. The impact of these travel restrictions was also seen on sports. Denmark and Sweden went ahead for a friendly Premier League match in Copenhagen without a few players. The Swedish FA announced that 5 players would be unable to join the squad for the same reason. There are 8 mink farms in Italy with a total of around 60,000 minks. The country's main animal protection association has submitted a request to the Ministry of Health to close these farms from January 2021. They are also asking for an immediate screening to be carried out. The association released a poignant video of mink farms in Brescia and Cremona that showed animals inside small cages in dirty conditions. Following the findings of a mutated virus among the animals in Denmark, Poland too will conduct coronavirus tests among its farmed minks. They are also checking to see whether farm workers and their families have been infected with COVID-19. Poland's mink population is roughly half the size of the Danish one. In the US, authorities are keeping about a dozen farms under quarantine. Utah was the first US state to confirm mink infections in August, and since then more than 15,000 minks in the United States have died of the coronavirus.
The virus has previously been detected in other species of mammals. Within the US, this is the first confirmed case in mink. The mink that tested positive for the virus were located at 2 separate farms in Utah. Being that these cases occurred within our state, the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food is working diligently with other organizations such as the Utah Department of Health, the Governor's Office, and the CDC to address these issues today and moving forward. The Utah Veterinary Diagnostic Lab completed necropsies on several animals at the 2 mink farms in Utah last week after the mink operations reported unusually high mortality rates in their mink populations.
The government has said that it is not planning to cull animals and is monitoring the situation in Denmark. What can we learn from these outbreaks? Coronaviruses are a ticking time bomb. Scientists have been warning about such outbreaks for decades. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, originated from Guangdong province, China in 2002, possibly from bats. Middle East respiratory syndrome, a viral respiratory disease, was first identified in Saudi Arabia in 2012. It is transmitted sporadically from camels to humans. Was COVID-19 foreseeable? The answer is a resounding yes. The virus originated from Wuhan, China. The country's lucrative and poorly regulated wildlife trade has been under the spotlight for many years now. While other countries have or are planning to ban mink fur production, according to the International Fur Federation, Chinese minks are dominating the market. In 2014, the country produced 35 million pelts, legally and illegally. It is an almost unregulated industry. Earlier this year, another act of animal brutality shocked the world. In Australia, up to 10,000 feral camels were culled using sniper fire from helicopters. This happened after an estimated 100 crore animals were killed in a catastrophic bushfire that started in 2019. The acute drought has pushed massive herds of feral or wild camels towards remote towns looking for water, endangering indigenous communities. Though authorities claim that the highest standard of animal welfare was maintained, the slaughter was undeniably cruel. Time and again, animals pay the price for human greed. Scientists and environmentalists have for long argued that destroying habitats has forced animals into closer proximity with us, ultimately spreading viruses to humans. Zoonotic outbreaks have shown that a lack of respect for animal welfare can have devastating consequences. The pattern will continue unless we learn from our mistakes.